First of all, Manny, thank you so much for the opportunity to share some humble thoughts and insights into the team, Milestone team, for including me and everyone else here and some of the other colleagues that I've had a chance to meet and look forward to collaborating with. As I was thinking about what could be meaningful and accretive to present and to provide context on today, I looked at the agenda and I said, do I talk about the people? Do I talk about the process, the technologies? And there are far more qualified folks for me as I participated in these panels to talk about those. But I did notice that no one was talking about who's going to pay when AI works, by the way, when it works with a bad actor, or when it breaks unintentionally. Who pays? And these are questions that, especially from the business side, we need to be able to answer not only for ourselves from a risk perspective, but also for the organizations that we're a part of. Whether you're private sector or not, ultimately, someone's going to have to pay for that. And as we've seen, AI has introduced new failure modes. Nothing new, it's a new technology, new failure modes. It's also introduced new concentrations of risk and new uninsured exposures. And so we're going to get into what we're talking about. And by the way, risk works on two sides. The risk of not adopting AI is just as important as the risk of adopting AI, right? Because if you don't adopt it, then you're going to potentially lose competitive advantage in the marketplace. There's also expectations from the leadership team about what's going on in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. So you got to look at both of those angles. So in these 15 minutes or so, I'll provide you hopefully with enough perspective to get you to think about this in a little bit different way. One of my favorite quotes is, when you change the way you look at things, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I will be challenging you to change the way you look at risk, AI, but more importantly, the digital aspect that we're all part of this ecosystem. So thank you for that. So here we go. Tuesday morning, come into your organization. All of a sudden, everything's broken. There's a shared LLM provider, AI platform, that was silently compromised or corrupted. The chatbots and co-pilots start leaking data. Misrouting actions and those other giving wrong approvals. Thousands of organizations are hit once. And then there's an AI dependency in there. When this is over, who pays? Is it your organization? Is it your vendor? Is it your AI provider? Or is it potentially something else that you didn't know about that you're going to have to investigate? And that's going to be the key question to helping you mitigate those risks and also transfer those risks appropriately. So AI is not just more cyber, right? There are new failure modes and concentrations of risk in these three areas. As a threat amplifiers with LLM assisted phishing and recon and exploit developments that we've heard about from Sergey and Baruch, we're talking about, and many other folks, right? And the complexity. What does that mean? It means it lowers the skill and effort required to launch these kinds of attacks, as we've heard. Literally, Tony Sibert can now be the equivalent of a nation state, okay? And then there's the critical dependency, shared AI providers embedded in the cloud and SaaS and internet tools. One failure can be what? A ripple across many organizations at once and dependencies. And that's just the AI that you know about, not the other term that you'll see later, the shadow AI. Remember the term shadow IT we used to have? Now we have shadow AI, personal and within organizations. And last but not least, decision makers and co-pilots. AI and SOCs and fraud detection, approvals and triage. Errors and manipulation now directly drive business decisions and actions. Quick show of hands, how many folks here are already using AI as part of your security tech stack? Yes? No? Not as much? Okay. And that's going to increase. Whether you like it or not, actually, it's going to be driven by either by vendors who themselves are using AI or by your own risk assessment and understanding of this. So remember, new failure modes and new concentrations of risk. Pretty simple slide here, but I humbly suggest trying to keep it simple with the complexity is understanding what is that AI cyber risk tech stack and thinking about it from a layer perspective. And for each layer, you're going to be thinking about, how do I mitigate that? How do I transfer? How are the risks shared? And what is accepted and what is not accepted? And for different organizations, you're going to have different answers to those. That's why a dialogue and an interactive conversation between your technology stakeholders, your business stakeholders, and your client and vendor ecosystem is really important. Starting at AI as an attack surface, then going down to AI as a defender, detecting, responding, and the SOC integration or other SIM tools. AI is a business engine, right? That's the external out to in. And of course, in the supply chain, you've got your whole vendor ecosystem, your whole vendor system that you need to truly understand what they're leveraging to enable their businesses. And by the way, I'll be happy to share the content of these slides and more. You'll see at the end with a link. So that'll be great. And then here's the interesting piece: regulatory and reputational exposure, high risk of AI use, safety biases, explainability and trust, the AI-centric risks that come about because of the use of the platforms. And remember, for each layer, you need to be thinking about how you mitigate, how you transfer, how you share, how you accept that risk. And my humble supposition is we're not ready. Our current risk transfer isn't AI ready. We are accelerating towards use of technology, but we're still leveraging models of yesteryear. We haven't even caught up on the cyber side, much less on the broader AI side. And what does this mean? We talk about the silent AI exposure, the policies and contracts that don't clearly address AI, right? They're not articulating what those risks are. One, because the companies don't understand them, and those that do, there's a mismatch between what the contracts are saying and what is actually being reflected, right? For example, a SaaS adds an AI feature and that mishandles a data source, and your policy never mentioned AI specifically. Or maybe if you're on the transfer side, you have an insurance policy, that's already been excluded. So you are assuming that you're covered, but you're not. The other aspect is systematic and aggregated risk. One AI provider, as I mentioned before, that we all depend on, no matter pick your platform, whatever that LLM is, can create one failure and many losses. And by the way, keep in mind shadow AI in this. You think you may have it with ChatGPT, for example, you're using whatever LLM, but what's behind that? And what's behind that? Some model fails across hundreds of clients. And by the way, this is what terrifies on the risk transfer side the insurers the most. And I'll show you some examples of those fears. And then last but not least, AI in the supply chain. Vendors quietly using AI under the hood, and liability and coverage are fuzzy about what that means. I was talking with somebody yesterday, and they talked about a solution that provided something and said, we're using AI, and what they were really doing is offshoring the manual work still to another country, and it was being portrayed as AI. Maybe that's small AI. For example, your vendor is using AI in your data without you even realizing that it's becoming part of an attack surface. And that's the key. It is a new attack surface, or surfaces, because of the dynamic and multi-layers of that. So, in summary on this side, our defenses are AI-driven, potentially. Some of you are already there, some of you are getting there. However, our contracts and capital are still pre-AI. So that is a huge mismatch, and you have to close that gap for true risk mitigation and transfer. What terrifies insurance the most? I'm not going to read all these out. There are many more I can share with you as part of the follow-up. But a couple things. Correlated model failures across thousands of insurers. That is the catastrophic model that was shared this morning on the quantum side, right? One issue that comes out and it impacts everybody. It's like a wildfire. There's no control for it, right? That's catastrophic. A couple other ones. I want to emphasize AI supply chain opacity. Who's using what AI? And is that accounted for in your contracts, in your service level agreements? And by the way, if you're using AI as a small vendor to a large organization, you need to be able to communicate that to the large organization for two reasons. One, to mitigate your own risk. And two, I think it gives you a competitive advantage because it shows a level of maturity to the big provider that you're already thinking in those risk terms, okay? We can talk about the other ones, potential for the $1 trillion. That's, again, that catastrophic perspective. Important to understand myths versus realities in cyber insurance and digital risk transfer. There are a number of these. I won't read all of them, but I do want to highlight a couple. Hey, it's digital and it's bad. We're already covered. Our policy covers it. Does it cover it? A colleague of mine in the industry essentially told me, this is as of 2 days ago, that a lot of the cyber insurance are actually going away from any AI risk coverage. They're literally, so make sure that you have some aspect of that by understanding how you're using AI. Another one that I want to emphasize is the MIS 3 there. The vendor will be on the hook if the AI fails. This goes back to the question, who pays? Who's responsible? Are they really on the hook? And if they are, do they really know they're on the hook? Or is it their shadow AI that they're using in that multi-layer network? Couple more here out of this list. One that's really interesting is myth 7. Cyber insurance is there to make us whole after an AI incident. Anybody believe that? Anybody experience that that is not the case? I hope you never have to, but that's the reality. Again, it's one of many portfolio avenues to mitigate and transfer risk. Here's a very interesting one, and we've heard this theme throughout the multiple panels, whether people are talking about the technologies, the people, or the processes, and that is transparency. What do I mean by that? In this case, look at number 8. Talking to insurance early will just raise our premiums. That's the old school thinking. Hey, I want to protect myself. I want to be as opaque as possible because they're going to raise my premiums. They're going to think I'm more risky. I humbly request that you become more proactive now. Again, because that demonstrates your level of maturity and understanding risk. And those discussions will drive towards an understanding and more transparency of actionable transfer mechanisms around AI and risk, right? So the reality there is transparent, data-driven AI risk management can improve your insurability and sometimes your terms. Not only insurability, am I covered or not, but what is your premium? That's really important to understand as well. So a couple things, what to do and what ask. I want to make this be actionable. Some of these things, this is not, some sort of quantum incredible conclusion. It's basic hygiene and behavioral actions, just like a diet, basic things, but they're important to integrate as part of your operating system, your governance and policy operating system. One is, and I would challenge you to, within the next 90 days, to go back to your organizations, whether you're a vendor, whether you're a developer, you need to be able to answer these questions and have these, and by the way, revisit them continuously because these are changing. One is coverage. How do your cyber policies and key contracts explicitly address AI incidents? If you're a receiver of AI services, you need to understand that. But if you're a provider of AI services, you also need to be able to communicate that to your client. Concentration. What's the exposure level? If one AI platform or some other cloud provider fails, or their model in itself is compromised, that's another key understanding level. Get back to accountability. Which AI critical decisions have no clear owner if something goes wrong? And if there is no clear owner, understand who that owner needs to be in a way to support them to mitigate and transfer those risks. And last but not least on this side, is there a program in place that balances risk reward? This is what we're talking about here. Ultimately, it's a risk reward decision-making process that's different across organizations, even if you're in the same industry. It's just different priorities, but you need to understand them. And remember, that's that risk of adopting AI or not adopting. There's risk on either side, right? So on the other side is, I humbly suggest you take an effort to map in a one-pager. Doesn't need to be complex. Build a one-page AI cyber risk map. And I'll provide some tools where you can get those for free and enable your progress. Understand what your AI clause audit is. If you're a receiver of services and you have contracts, either service level agreements and or insurance, understand what those clauses are. If you're a provider, even if you don't have insurance, or understand what clauses you're committing to your client, because they're going to expect that. Train like you're going to fight. Train like you're going to fight. Practice an AI breakdown. Understand these questions so that you're not surprised at the very end and if you're learning this in real time, it's way too late. Classic crisis management stuff, but important. Practice, train like you're going to fight. And then do an oversight assessment. Get a third party, a neutral third party. This doesn't need to be complicated. This doesn't need to be expensive. There are many tools out there that I can provide as well after this that arm you against the standards of frameworks like NIST, AI RMF, AI Reg Risk is a great objective tool. I've done some work with them to develop and help expand that into use. And again, these are out there for you to use to at least get that version 1 of a framework that matters to understanding these questions. So continue the conversation, and that's what's important. Conversation for us as an ecosystem, as developers, as users of these conferences, and the information that comes from it, continue the conversation, because guess what? AI development and maturity is continuing on. So you need to be part of that. Understand the AI cyber risk and transfer canvas. If you scan here and connect with me, be happy to provide these tools and guide you on the way. Again, my purpose is to kind of be an advocate to empowering all of us to use this amazing ecosystem of digital technologies, but also help each other mitigate the risk, because we are all stakeholders in protecting this infrastructure. There's a scenario pack. I can send a short tabletop ideas for you, and then you can adapt those as appropriate. And then also hosting a virtual roundtable, again, gratis, that will hopefully continue the conversation, and I can learn from you just as hopefully as much as I've been able to provide some key insights and perspectives from here. So that is the context and content of my points, and I'm grateful again for your consideration, and look forward to feedback from your side about what you're doing to mitigate and transfer these risks that are changing in a dynamic way.
Thank you so much, Tony. Great.